Huzzah! Hey, there it is! It worked!
It worked!
Perfect.
It worked.
We're doing so freaking good. Adam Cole just walked in.
I literally
just walked in.
May or may not have just 30 seconds ago walked into this room.
Hello, you took a seat, I pressed the button, and here we are.
That's why we like to do it.
That's how, we do this on a tight schedule here on Elite Arcade. We actually both have a very, very long day.
A very long
ahead
day.
of us.
Yeah, but we love it. When we're under pressure like this is where
this is the only way I operate. Hey, today we're going to be talking video games, which we always do, but we're going to go, more specifically, we're going to go through every decade and tell you what we consider our 3 favorite games. And I can tell you right now, we talked about it for a couple of days. I'm a little stressed talking about it.
I'm very stressed.
I'm also unsure if I committed to the right game.
I know. Yes. I felt over and over again, there were times I would look at a list from a certain decade. And I would go, oh no, these are definitely my top 3. And then I would look through again, and I could have listed multiple top 3s. Like,
I wrote mine, and then I looked at yours.
Yeah.
And then I thought, he's right. Here we go.
Yes.
All right. Before I proceed this, both of us are born in the 80s, correct?
Yes, 89.
89, 87. So, you know, some of these I played most of these games in like 92 maybe.
Yeah.
You know,
oh my God. Yeah, 92 was the first year I played video games.
Yeah, same. My Christmas that year, I got a Nintendo. I have video footage of it, and I've never turned back since.
Nice.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you my 3 games.
Okay.
And then you say your 3 games. Then we can just discuss.
Yeah.
I picked in the 80s. I picked Super Mario 3. I picked Tetris. And I picked Metroid. We will get further into this. But first, Chugs, what did you pick?
Excellent choices, by the way. My top 3 are the original Super Mario Bros.
Mm-hmm.
The Legend of Zelda 1. And Pac-Man.
Oh, okay.
That was my top 3.
All right, let's unpack this real quick. We're both not raised in this generation, so I know future ones you will literally see the delineation of what consoles you got and what consoles I got. But in this one, this is a Nintendo heavy list, and obviously some arcade too with Pac-Man on it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Tetris first,
please,
if we're cool with that. I don't think there's a more perfect puzzle game than Tetris.
And not only that, but that's got to be top 3 most famous video games.
Oh yeah, influential like crazy. There's a movie actively in the movie theaters right now called Tetris.
Yeah.
About the craziness of finding, so like going through international law to try and get the IP from a different country to produce it here. To me, it's one of the most addictive games I've ever played. Yeah. And I still actively play it nowadays. Nowadays, I play it in Tetris versus Puyo Puyo a whole lot with my wife. But Tetris Effect, every Tetris except for Tetris 3D, wasn't a big fan. Huge into it. There's competitive scenes still actively, and this is 40 years running.
Yeah.
You have world champions for this stuff. It's still difficult today, too. It didn't get easier in any way. It's exactly the same game. It still somehow works its way out.
Definitely, but such an important game.
I think so, too.
In the history of video games. And you can play it on virtually any platform.
The package with the game, came with the Game Boy.
Right.
Like that was the way. Like, that's how you knew. My mom would play those games, and she wasn't a gamer. Yes. And that's how you knew, like, okay, this reached, like, a different path entirely.
For sure.
Go on. You can now name one of yours, so we can discuss it at nauseam.
Yeah. So again, this one, it really speaks for itself, but I will go kind of with the order that I listed. But Super Mario Bros. Mm-hmm. The video game mascot is Mario to this day, and I think another reason why I think this game is so high on my list. Not only because I really do like old Mario games, you can go back and play to this day, and they are so much fun. Like, I will play Super Mario Bros. Or Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World like I did this month. Like, there's still so much fun
I revisit every Mario game multiple times a year. Yeah. Somehow, they don't age. Mario 1 is still good. It's still a great game.
Yeah, it's huge. And then, again, most importantly, I think, again, 1983, there was the video game crash where Atari was doing really well, but there was just an abundance of video games that were kind of being released super, super quick. And there was a thought there, at least on the Western side, that video games were kind of a fad that
was going to die. Yeah.
And then Super Mario Bros. Came along and Nintendo saved the day. So Super Mario Bros. Again, still an amazing game.
It probably single-handedly, like, created the personal, like, well, I guess Atari at that point, but like Nintendo became a huge thing, probably solely based on the fact that Mario was so good and so amazing.
Yep, absolutely.
Obviously, I wasn't there at the time when it came out.
The imagination too of like it was one of the first games that really captured my imagination.
We actually got to tour Nintendo, and were you there when
I wasn't?
No!
I heard
Okay, so they got the show. They showed the actual paper fabrications of each level, like how he drew it on.
Did they really?
On like what do you call that? Like geometry paper where it's just like lined up with dots and stuff.
Sorry, I'm just crying.
It was cool. It was cool.
No, it sounds amazing. I want to do it so bad someday.
Yeah, Mario 1, amazing.
Mario 1.
I knew that we would have to discuss Mario 1, and that is why I chose Mario 3.
And all I'm going to say, and then I know it's your, if I wasn't picking Mario 1, I would have picked
Exactly. And I actually picked Mario. This is one of those situations where I picked Mario 1, saw you in Mario 1, and I was like, well, we have to talk about Mario 3. I didn't want to put two Mario games in my same list.
Yeah.
I want to vary it a little bit. Mario 3, couple things. First of all, graphically on the Nintendo, it looks like a Super Nintendo game.
Yes, it does.
It is incredible. It is on the later side of the lifetime of NES.
Yep.
But man, it is so good. And it has, it obviously has the co-op experience, but it also has that mini game where you can play against each other, the old school arcade Mario within it. Some of the enemies that have gone on through all Mario games are initiated in this game.
Yep.
It initiated The Wizard, which I think might be the first video game movie. And also, somehow, all of us knew how to do the secret, like, face through the white block.
Right.
And probably because of that movie, too. It's incredible.
It's so good.
It's incredible.
So good. What many people consider the greatest Mario game of all time.
Yes.
Also, side note, the best Bowser theme is Mario Bros. 3.
Oh, yes, I agree.
Remix it for Mario RPG as well.
Man.
Oh, it's so good. So
Mario music is also so iconic. Like, obviously the theme is, but like you don't realize it until you play the recent ones and they remaster old previous versions or retool them somehow. That like I think 50 songs from the first 3 Mario games.
Yeah.
If you played them, I'm like, that's this level.
Easily.
That's this level.
Easily.
They're just incredible.
But so for my next one, going off of capturing your imagination, again, the first Legend of Zelda. And this is crazy to say because I've played it a ton. I've never beaten the original Legend of Zelda. It's a game actually that I want to beat on stream at some point. But I remember like the overwhelming sense of like, where do I go?
Yeah, what the heck is it? Yeah.
And then when you start figuring it out, like to this day, one of the biggest reasons I love games is that problem-solving aspect of like in an open world type of Metroidvania environment where like, what do I do? Where do I go? Oh my God, I needed this. And you get that like rush of dopamine through your head when you figure it out. But again, Legend of Zelda speaks for itself. It was the start of one of the greatest franchises of all time, and just so ahead of its time, I think, to this day.
I agree with all of your points. I will say I've never beaten it either. And at the time when I originally played it when I was a child, I didn't like the game. And I think mainly because I didn't know how to attack it.
Of course.
I tried playing it, I'd say 5-6 years ago and still couldn't beat it.
Yeah.
And it definitely doesn't age as well as, let's say, a Mario does.
Right.
But it started the Zelda craze and eventually led to some of the best games of all time.
Yeah.
My third pick was Metroid, and I would like to say it's probably not going to be most people's pick of top 3 from this generation, but for you and I, Metroidvania games are probably at the top of the list of what we play.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for this game, and a Castlevania to some extent as well, I don't know if we'd have the games that we love today. We wouldn't have our Hollow Knights. We wouldn't have Guacameles. We wouldn't have all that stuff.
No.
I played Metroid when I was a kid, and I was in love.
Yeah.
It was the first one that actually felt like a sci-fi game compared to other games. Everything looked like... everything felt cartoony and childish, whereas like Metroid, and I was a child, felt like, oh, this is an adult game. I'm playing an adult game. Incredible game.
So
great music. It led to eventually the structure of what all future games are like, where you have a path you revisit with different weapons and different access points. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
So good. And my third choice, again, is actually an arcade game, but Pac-Man. I mean, there's an argument to be made that Pac-Man maybe isn't now overall the most famous video game mascot, but he was the first.
Yes, definitely.
With music and there wasn't a movie, right? It was just a music video, I think. Pac-Man.
I think
Fever.
just a music video. They had a cartoon show. I know that.
Yes, a cartoon
definitely.
show. But again, that's one of those games where to this day, if you go into an arcade and there's a Pac-Man machine, I want to play it.
I'll play it.
Not only do I want to play it, but my mom wants to play it, who's not a gamer. My brother, who's a huge gamer, he would want to play it. But Pac-Man is just, oh man, it to me, to this day, is something that you could so easily pick up and play and have an amazing time playing.
One of my dreams is to own one of those Pac-Man or Galaga sit-down cabinets, the tables.
Yes.
Oh my god.
So cool.
I didn't put Pac-Man on this list, but I do believe Pac-Man, Tetris, and Mario might be the three most influential games from that generation.
I think
if it wasn't for those three, and Donkey Kong too, Donkey Kong the arcade would probably be some of the most influential games that are ever made around that time. But if it wasn't for Pac-Man, there wouldn't be an arcade craze. I don't.
Yeah, no, it really was one of the catalysts between the Atari 2600 exploding the way that it did for home consoles. But as far as arcades really blowing up, I know like Galaga was popular, Asteroids and all that stuff was popular, but seriously, Pac-Man was another level of popular.
For sure. So we asked you who you thought had the best list for the 80s. They voted the Chugs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But hey,
all right.
I am not offended. We like all of these.
I was going to say.
like all of these.
There's it's impossible. This is one heck of a top 6.
That's right.
If I say so myself.
Right. Nothing but great games.
This is cool because I haven't seen your list at all yet.
Yeah, you get the picture first.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're done with the 80s. We've determined what our 3 favorites each. Let's go into the 90s, and this is where it gets real tough.
This is where it gets.
I tackled this list at least 10 times, and it took me until last night, very, very late, to be like, okay, I'm just gonna commit to this.
I'm going to say right now, here we go.
Okay.
The 90s choice, there are so many amazing, influential, incredible games that I literally picked the top 3 games that were the most important to me in the 90s. That's it.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah, I could not.
And when I saw your list, I was like, yep, all those I would put on my list. But like, this is where it really splits off. You could tell.
Huge.
You could tell I was a Nintendo kid in the 90s, and you probably had a PlayStation and
I was a
Xbox.
PlayStation kid.
Yeah. And no, Halo's the next year. But yes, you were definitely a PlayStation kid that year.
Yeah,
all right.
sure.
Do you want to start? Should I start?
Sure, I can
all right,
start.
Go. Get your first one in there.
Again, for this top 3, these 3 games are all games that made me realize video games were more than just something to pass the time. When I was thinking about these games when I wasn't playing them, and I was getting invested in these characters. So to start with number 1, it to me is the greatest RPG of all time, Final Fantasy VII. I remember how this happened is me and my brother wanted Resident Evil 2 for Christmas that year. And my mom didn't get it for us because it was rated M for mature, and we were super upset. She's like, I got you this other game that apparently is really popular, Final Fantasy VII. And we were so bummed out. We were like, what is this? Where's the zombies? What's going on? We put it in and we played it. And it very quickly became me and my brother's favorite game. Just obsessed with the characters. The story is unlike anything I had experienced at that time.
It also felt like the biggest game of all time when it came out.
Absolutely huge.
Like no game was 60 plus hours. Or if they weren't as popular as this game was.
Right, exactly. So Final Fantasy VII, one of the greatest games ever made. Cannot wait for FF7 Rebirth that comes out this year as well. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII for me.
So quickly on Final Fantasy VII, that's the first game I ever had to own a manual for.
Yes.
Because I remember, so I hadn't played it when it came out. PlayStation didn't have a PlayStation. A few years later, you could buy a 4-disc set on PC for Final Fantasy VII, and the box was ginormous. And I thought I was buying the manual at the same time because the box was so big. So I bought my parents bought the box. We played it on our PC, only to find out like, oh, the manual's not into it. The manual's as big as the box. It's a brick. It's like a giant dictionary. But it's the first game and probably one of the only games I've ever gone A to Z.
Yeah.
I played it once and then A to Z with the manual to do the absolute most from it.
I did the same exact thing. And not only did I do it, I did that recently.
I might still have my level 99 character saved somewhere on my computer.
I definitely do.
Yeah.
I wanted to 100% the game and do everything there is to do. So it's incredible. I love it.
Your first game pretty much determined your future in video games and pretty much made you love videos and think of it as more than just what you're playing, an art form.
Yes, and that's what the 90s did for me. Yeah,
that is exactly what Super Mario 64 did to me. Because... So the first time I ever played it, we have an amusement park in Montreal called La Ronde. And before the N64 came out, they would travel the N64 around on these little kiosks called Nintendo World. And you would go in and they would just have like the N64. And essentially all you got to do was play the opening part where you moved Mario's face, right? You didn't even get to play Mario 64. You only played the Mario 64 pulling on the face. That was like the first time I'd seen 3D.
Yes.
Ever. Like, movies, yes, but something that you could manipulate in front of you. And as a kid, I was like, I have to have this. I didn't even know what the game looked like. I was like, I have to have this. Yeah. And so I got an N64, and this is a quick little story too. It was a giant ice storm in Canada that knocked out the power for most of our city. And we had to move out of our house for several weeks because there was no heat. So we lived in a hotel room. And my dad, because I was miserable, because you don't get to see your friends, you don't get to go out, decided, okay, I'm going to get him what he wants. We're just going to give him the N64, and I'm going to get him Mario 64. And for a week and a half, I just sat in a hotel room, and I played that game ad nauseum. And if it wasn't for that game, I wouldn't be in love with games I am today. Because it actually, playing it, it made me realize, like, oh, people made this.
Yeah.
Like, it made me realize that, like, oh, this is just not something that happens. This, people had to think of how, as I was playing, I had to think, and then it made me realize, like, someone had to think about making this, which therefore they had to think even more, and it blew my freaking mind. Mario 64 I still replay every year.
I was gonna say, to this day, that is a game you could absolutely pick up and play today.
Yeah, and I'll try to do the 120 stars, get mad most of the time, but I've done it at least a dozen times as a
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's such a classic.
Absolutely the best.
And speaking of classics, this used to be our favorite Resident Evil game, but my next choice is Resident Evil 2. Again, I remember the first time playing this game, I was at a friend's house, and we were both so scared that he would make me play, and then I couldn't play. I'd make him play. This was the opening cutscene and just the very first area before you go into the gun shop. It took us an hour to figure out how to get into the actual gun shop to see Kendo, which is hysterical. But that game went on to just, again, I really do. I think to this day, the Resident Evil zombie story is the best zombie story of all time. I love the idea of a pharmaceutical company secretly developing stuff to try to make super soldiers.
It makes the most sense.
It does.
It definitely makes the most sense.
Does. But yeah, Resident Evil 2, I put so much time into that game, beat it countless times. It's my favorite traditional survival horror game for sure. So then there's just so much replay value with the A and the B scenario.
I know we talked about it before, but I didn't own this when it came out. And I tried to play it at a friend's house. And by tried to play it, back in the day, you just watch your friends play.
Yeah,
That's how it was. And after the first hour, I was terrified, and I didn't play it until I was an adult.
Yeah.
But it's still one of my favorite games of all time.
So good.
I wish I had gotten it at the time, but I think my child brain at the time would have never been able to complete it.
Right.
Because it was terrifying when it came out.
There
weren't games this scary when we started.
No, the music, the atmosphere, it was so good. So good.
My next one is we're jumping back from N64, and this was a hard one. Because there's a lot of great Zelda games, and you're going to be like, why didn't you put Ocarina of Time? Why didn't you put Majora's Mask? I completely agree. Those games are fantastic, but if it wasn't for Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, I would love. I would not love those games.
Great choice.
To this day, you can go back and play that game, and it looks like an independent game that came out this year. Yep. It is incredible. The puzzles are incredible. It has so much variety. It's gorgeous. It's got a great story for a Zelda game, and it pretty much defined what Zelda games were going to be for the future as well.
Yeah.
My personal one of my personal favorite Super NES games. We're going to talk about my actual favorite right after this, but I love this game. I wish I could erase it from my mind, because every time I go through it, I know exactly how to go through it. And I remember the first time I played it, and that the same way you were playing with Zelda 1 on the NES, not knowing where the hell you had to go, and just trying to have to figure it out yourself, and trying to get contextual clues from like text from some people, or just like, you know, you see a shrub over there, you open the shrub, it opens a hole, and you're like, is this hole important? You don't know. Like, that stuff I love. Like, and Zelda eventually played off that to an even larger extent. But man, Link to the Past is so good.
I do feel like Link to the Past was the first Zelda game where everything was firing on all cylinders.
Oh, yes.
Where it's like you said, that became the basis of The Legend of Zelda from that point on.
I actually wonder if 1 and 2 on NES were financially good for them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because I know Link to the Past was very good for them in the end.
Right. My third choice, again, I'm sticking all PlayStation 1 era, but again, that's where I grew up and playing. But it's Metal Gear Solid. Again, I keep talking about story.
Yes.
But when I first was watching these cutscenes unfold and playing this game, like, it was so interesting to me that I was like, this is like the best movie I've ever seen. I thought it was so awesome. The bosses in the game were super cool, and again, the replay value. It's still a game that I could pick up and play today. But for me, the trifecta of the '90s is FF7, RE2, and Metal Gear Solid. I love all three.
I don't know if the stealth craze was initiated by Metal Gear Solid, but I almost feel like if it wasn't for that game, like, we wouldn't have nearly as many stealth games ever.
Right.
Because like, the way they do stealth games in that, where it's like if you look at an overhead map and just how it's like boxed out with a cone for vision, is how all stealth games are made now.
Yeah.
Literally how all stealth games are made now. It's one of the best games of all time.
It's so good.
Also, might be one of the best series of all time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I haven't beaten 5, which I'm sure a lot of people will be disappointed, but 1 to 4 is one of the best series of games ever.
So awesome. Unbelievable.
And now I will talk about my last one. I would talk ad nauseum about this, and I don't want to just bombard you with all my feelings about Donkey Kong, but Donkey Kong Country 2 is one of, if not my favorite game of all time, only surpassed by N64's Super Mario 64. Donkey Kong has a huge... We talked about how Donkey Kong needs to have a new game.
Yes.
Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3 are some of the best games of all time. They look insane on Super Nintendo.
Unreal.
They don't even look like they're from the same console generation. They somehow use the hardware to make music that no one else could do, make graphics that no one else could do. They made large, vast platforming game that, like... Not that many people emulate that style either.
No.
You know what I mean? It's not like Mario where the jumps are... It's hard to explain, but they jam-packed so much stuff into Donkey Kong Country, and then they made Donkey Kong Country 2 even better.
Yep.
With Dixie and Diddy. It is one of my favorite games. I revisit it almost every week. I play a little bit of Donkey Kong. I'm actually playing some on my Steam Deck right now.
Oh, awesome.
I love Donkey Kong Country. And shame on you if you do not. That's all I have to say.
My ringtone for when anyone calls me is Forest Interlude from Donkey Kong
Hell yes.
2.
Hell yes.
I love Donkey
Now
Kong
we're freaking
Country
talking.
2.
And also, water levels in all Donkey Kong games are the only water levels that don't suck.
Oh, yes. Aquatic ambience. Yes. You can't help but be
It's so good. It's so good.
To that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to freshen up that list. All right. We put a vote on who you believe Twitch had the better choice, and I just narrowly got it.
Beautiful.
More Nintendo kids than PlayStation kids. But I'll tell you what, all 6 of these games, incredible.
So good. So good.
Someone is asking me, Hispano, is DK Country Returns worth playing? I'm actually playing it actively. Yes. Yes, it is. Go play that game right now.
Yeah.
Also, play all Donkey Kong games.
All of them.
We're going to keep getting into harder and harder territory.
Oh, I know.
It's time for the 2000s. Now, my 3 games are vastly different from yours, and I'm actually excited.
I'm excited too.
I chose Uncharted 2. I chose Super Mario Galaxy and Diablo 2.
Oh, very nice.
I know, a real left field choice.
Very great choices. And my 3 choices are Halo Combat Evolved.
Yep.
Demon Souls, and Braid.
So this is the year where I'm like, oh, this made the Chugs. The 2000s is what the Chugs is.
Yes,
right.
100%. This year was if I was truly introduced and became a casual fan of video games in the 90s.
Yeah.
The 2000s set the groundwork for me becoming a huge video
just
game
by looking at what you have there, it essentially established your fandom for Halo, the Souls series, and probably independent games, which you play a whole lot of as well. Braid was also my first indie as well, and I did not put it on this list because you did it, but Jonathan Blow, who made Braid and made The Witness, makes incredible art, and I cannot wait till he makes more games.
Yes.
Braid is, I'll swear, F it.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It is
insane. Crazy. Okay.
Oh my god.
Let's just start with Braid. Since
sure. Yeah. Perfect. So again, the reason I chose Braid is it was my first exposure to independent games.
Yes.
And I think overall why I was so captivated is I looked at these AAA titles that are amazing, but then I'm reading up on how Braid was created and how it was made, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like one person or like a handful of people who made this incredible game with an awesome soundtrack. The time travel aspect was so interesting, and also
they redid it so like the time travel gets used in different ways across all levels in ways that you thought like this is impossible. How did a person think of this? And to this day, it's still crazy.
Crazy. And right again, the last part, aside from my introduction to indie games, is the story is something that people still talk about to this day. They're trying to dissect it and figure out exactly what it means. So again, as an art form, Braid is just a 10 out of 10 incredible game.
A little side piece on this. Did you do both endings?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, I did.
Because that changes the whole thing. Yeah, it's so good.
Huge.
Oh my god, it's so good.
It's so great.
All right. Well, I will then talk about Uncharted 2. I think Uncharted 1 was a good game.
Yeah.
I didn't think twice about it when I played it. I thought it was a good game, whatever. Uncharted 2, at the time, might have been the most cinematic game to ever come out. I remember playing the opening train level. That's 2, right? Yes. And my wife likes video games, so it's not like she doesn't play video games, but watching it, she's like, wow, this is a movie.
Yeah.
Like, this is a movie. Yes, it is. It has some of the biggest set pieces of action. It is obviously driven by its characters, and you know, like, obviously Nathan Drake is freaking fantastic in it. The story is fantastic. It has the perfect length, I think, too. Like, it doesn't. I felt like 3 and 4 at some point, like you. Not that they're bad. I like both of those games. They're freaking incredible. But like 2 just hits exactly where you want it. Man, I love revisiting Uncharted. The series is insane, and obviously we will talk about it later on. But it led to eventually making their biggest of masterpieces as well.
Yeah. It's still regarded by a lot of people as the best Uncharted game.
Yes,
people
and it's crazy to think that this is the people that were involved in Crash Bandicoot.
Right.
So vastly different.
I know.
So vastly different. Uncharted 2 is so good, and you can play them. They've been remastered, so if you want to play them recently, you can play them at their best right now.
Yes, you can. My second choice is Demon Souls.
Yeah.
Which technically is the first Soulsborne from software game that kind of started this entire craze of Dark Souls and Bloodborne and Sekiro and Elden Ring and things like that. But this game, again, Dark Souls has like its own genre, its own style of game that's influenced so many different creators to make games similar to it, or at least inspired by it. But this game, and playing it for the first time, the punishing difficulty was something I hadn't experienced in a really long time in a video game. And then just the feeling, the rewarding feeling you get from finally beating a level or beating a boss or finding a secret is, to me, the Soulsborne games do it better than any other genre. I just, maybe that and Metroidvanias, but there's some Metroidvania aspects to Souls.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Branching paths, unlocking them at a future time.
Right. So, Demon Souls for me is my choice.
I only played Demon Souls when it came out on PS5 because I just didn't have the consoles when they originally came out. Yeah. And honestly, much like Zelda 1, I don't think I would have gravitated towards a game that beat the crap out of me until I was an adult.
Sure.
But man, it's the daddy of them all.
It is, yeah.
And those games play a huge part of my life now, and a huge part in so many people's lives now.
Oh my god, yeah.
I'm gonna quick fire just because we want to try and get out of here in 15 minutes. Super Mario Galaxy. It's another Mario game, but it is beyond that because they don't do just platforming. They added gravity to it in a way that was actually fun. Exploring a sphere over and over on numerous places just made like the puzzles more intricate. It was vastly different from all previous Mario games because of that. And to add to it, and I think 2 is great too.
Yeah.
The second game is so cool. But they essentially just take like, you get jumped into a world and they decide like, okay, Mario jumping around's not enough. Let's add a wrinkle specifically to this world. And they do this over like 50 maps. It is so good. You should replay it if you've never played it. You can also get on Switch. Mario games I don't think there are bad Mario games.
I've never played one.
I don't think, maybe Mario is missing or something like that on NES,
So
but I don't even know.
innovative,
Yeah.
too.
Just go out of your way, go play the Galaxy games. They still hold up today.
Yes. And my final option, of course, is Halo Combat Evolved. It's the game. I played GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64, but this game specifically made me really fall in love with first-person shooters. The amount of times that I would go to friends' houses and we would have LAN parties. I thought the story was really interesting. My middle school wrestling team, we ran out to the Halo theme for our matches.
Oh yeah.
Like Halo was a huge part of my life. And again, to this day, as far as console first-person shooters go, Halo was incredibly influential. So Halo Combat Evolved for me.
I mean, if it wasn't on this list, I would have been very, very disappointed.
I had to.
So we asked you who you believe. Oh, sorry, I have one more to talk about. It's funny because you just talked about LAN parties, about how it was a part of your friendship with your friends at the time. That's what Diablo 2 was for me. I had never done a LAN party in my life other than for Diablo 2. It's the only game that I was so committed to playing that I was willing to move my brick of a computer to another person's house to play it.
That's amazing.
I still play Diablo 2 nowadays. They do the remastered. It's so fun. It's the same game. They just extended to widescreen. I didn't get into Diablo 3 as much. I'm super excited for Diablo 4, which I don't know if you're into that, but June is going to be amazing.
It looks great.
But D2 just has a perfect loop, a loop that I didn't understand at the time. Like I didn't play a lot of like point-click style computer games at the time. I was mostly a Mario kid, so I thought about platforming and I thought about solving puzzles. Diablo 2 is just about like inventory management, numbers. Here, this number's higher than yours. This is it. But it was such a great game to play with your friends. To continue, and you could play with one friend and then play with another friend and still extend your play, which was always so fun. All right.
Great top 3.
Uno, did you ever run into the issue in D2 LAN where max PCs on QA public IP? No, I did not, because I don't know what you're saying, so therefore I assume I was fine. But thank you for saying that. We actually asked who you thought had the best list, and by one single vote, I won.
Oh, man.
Minimal.
Very close. These are some great games.
We've got some great games
and a close race.
All right, we've got the 2010s and the 2020s left.
Okay.
2010s next. I'll give you my 3 games right now.
Okay.
Breath of the Wild, Last of Us, and Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh my God. Good. So again, looking at that, there were 2 games on that list that I wanted to pick, but I was like, I'm going to stick with these 3.
When I saw yours, I was like, I bet you he wanted those on there, and I have to put them.
Yeah, right. But my top 3 is Hollow Knight.
Yes.
Also, The Last of Us, and The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. That is my top 3.
Can we jump into Witcher 3 right now? Because
Absolutely.
you only just played it recently.
Yeah. Well, actually, it came out in 2015.
Yes. No, but I mean, you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm currently replaying it through the next gen
Had
upgrade.
you played it in 2015 as well?
I played it in 2016.
Oh, I think it's Orange Cassidy that played it for the first time.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, that's what it was.
The Witcher 3 is one of those games where when I first picked up to try to play it, my buddy of mine was like, you got to play this. And it didn't grab me to where I ended up playing another game for a little while. And then I'm like, I'm going to go back to The Witcher 3. Then I became obsessed. Again, it was a game that I thought about all day, nonstop. I did every single side quest you could do. I put close to 200
hours. That's a big ass game.
It's huge. All the DLC. Again, the story is incredible. It's one of those games where if you like don't play all the side missions, it makes me feel bad that there are people who are missing.
Yeah, because you're missing out on so much cool content.
But yeah, Witcher 3, top to bottom, one of the greatest video games ever made.
So I didn't play when it came out. I'm actively playing it right now as well. Awesome. So both me and Orange are talking about it. I'm still very early, but I can tell the only thing I don't like nowadays is that like those type of games have changed slightly, where they don't have those changes, obviously, because it's a game from almost a decade ago. Right. But I'm enjoying it a whole lot. It runs so good on my Steam Deck right now. I'm gonna quick fire. I'm gonna go start with Red Dead 2. Red Dead 1 was one of my favorite games of all time. I did not list it previously, but when Red Dead 2 came out, I thought there's no way they're gonna make a better game. They really did. They really did. It is a vast single player experience, and the multiplayer is really fun. And that could be an entire different talk, and we'll just evade that for now. But the single player made me so invested in Arthur, a character I thought I would not care about because he had nothing to do with the first character. Yep. It made me love exploring the world. That's what I think I like. Two of these games, well, actually all three of these games, but two of these games are so heavy on exploration and finding new things and finding side stories, or even like what I like in Red Dead 2 above the storyline, the graphics, and just like how much the sceneries are so nice. Yep. You walk around on a horse, you see a scenery, you're like, this is breathtaking. But the biggest thing of all is that like you can walk around and see a piece that has no see like a dead body on the ground and not think twice about it, and go online and you can find lore for every piece of everything. And it somehow all attaches. It's a huge world, and it's super well fabricated.
And so well put together. Like, Red Dead 2 is awesome. So my next choice is Hollow Knight, which it is my favorite Metroidvania game of all time.
Agreed.
Again, going on one of these things, but at this point in my life, I was traveling a ton. And I had my Switch, and I'm like, I'm going to try this Hollow Knight game out. And again, it was one of those games where I was spending hours watching lore videos online. Yes. I'm constantly going back and playing the game. I've 112% of the game twice now, which is like the max completion you can do with Hollow Knight. It is so well done. The music is great. The combat feels great. The lore behind so many of the characters.
It has so much levels to it too. There's the surface level, and then you realize like if you've mastered that, well, guess what? You've got so many bosses left.
Right.
It is so good.
Like Silksong is my most anticipated game of this year if it comes out.
Yeah, that's in my top 3 for sure.
But Hollow Knight is my.
So I want to put Hollow Knight on my list too, but I knew you were going to talk it for sure. I put and we'll talk about our number 3 together. Yeah. But I put Breath of the Wild. I still think it might be the best Zelda game of all time. It is kind of mixed reviews for certain people, because some people don't like that model of a Zelda game. But to me, throwing me in a world that I have no direction for, until this game, I did not realize I want every game to be like this.
Right.
And we'll talk about it later on, I'm sure, with Elden Ring. But like that sense of mystery and discovery, where if I walk in a direction and I see a thing, I feel rewarded, rather than walk in a direction and I know I had to walk in that direction. Yeah. Like I know I'm heading to a thing because a point tells me there. Breath of the Wild is not like that. You like start obviously on this plateau and you see a gazillion things and you decide like, oh, I'm gonna go where that lightning is. And there's always something.
Every time.
Always something. It is an incredible game, a 100-hour journey. You could play it however way you want, obviously. You can go straight to the boss if you want. And I think that's so cool how structurally it's made. And I love the impact it's had on all the games it's had. All games it's made since, because it made open world games better.
Right. Still, one of my favorite memories from that game is climbing on top of a tower and seeing this forest I hadn't seen. Yeah. And gliding down. And all of a sudden, in the distance, you can hear the Lost Woods music as you go in. And I was like, this game is amazing. Yes. Speaking of amazing, both of us had this game in our top 3, and that is The Last of Us. Again, just very quickly, I know Last of Us has been talked about a lot, but one of the best stories, one of the best well-acted, the fact that the game uses almost zombies as a secondary outlet for the story.
It's all about humans
versus human interaction.
Yes. Oh my god.
It just so ahead of its time. You laugh, you cry. It takes you on a journey. like any great movie or any great video game would. It's special.
It's definitely, I think both of their games have done it, but like one of the few games I've cried at and cried without hiding it because I couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, it was actually crushing. Incredible game. It's been remastered twice now.
Yep.
Obviously there's the TV show, which I'm only 4 episodes in.
Okay.
I'm only 4 episodes in. I've already cried twice. It's just, you know, if I talked about Uncharted 2 and how well that looked and how their set pieces were, they did that, but on an emotional scale rather than an Indiana Jones scale.
Right.
And it is so good. It is so good. You can play it today, and it still feels new, and it still feels relevant. It is so worth playing. If you've not played Last of Us,
please do.
I mean, what are you doing? It's one of the best games of all time.
Do yourself a favor. It's amazing.
People lean towards your list on this one.
Okay. So we're at 2 apiece.
We're 2 apiece. We'll get you all vote on the final one very soon.
Okay.
But before we do that, we're going to quickly go into our 2020s. I know it's only 2023.
Yes.
We're going to tell you the 3 games we think are the best ones as of yet. I'm going to go right away.
Okay.
We have one pick that I know both of us have. We'll talk ad nauseum at it. I'm going to go right through it. I put Hades, which I think is super interesting of a roguelike game. I'm super into roguelikes right now about just like procedural levels and being able to play the same game and trying to get to that goal. That one is so cool because it has that curve of story constantly being delivered. Yeah. So like if you do a run of 5 minutes, guess what? You still get story. If you do a run of an hour and you succeed, guess what? You still have active story. So you constantly want to play it. It's just stunning, great music for sure. My other one was Pentiment. Not a game for everyone. I'm a big point and click guy. This pretty much taught me about 1600 literature and religion stuff that happened at the time. Like, it's a very educational game. It will play tricks on you in so many ways. It is worth playing if you're to point and clicks, but it is a very wordy game. So if you're not into reading, if you're not into just pure story, this is a pure story game, but it is probably one of the best ever made. We'll talk when you say your last 3 on the last one. Go on.
Okay, yeah. So, my last 3, number 1 is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Again, the original Final Fantasy VII was on my 90s list. I think Remake did such an amazing job of not only paying tribute to the original, but it made me feel like a kid again. Just with the way the story was, the way that the action was, how awesome all the characters looked. Again, this game is incredibly important to me, and if they put as much love and attention into FF7 Remake as they do Rebirth and then the 3rd game, I think overall as a package, it could be the greatest RPG ever made. I absolutely love it. Secondly, a new IP, Ghost of Tsushima.
So good.
Again, unbelievable open world game. The combat is amazing. Again, the world is so beautiful. I'll never forget when I first booted up that game and the intro plays. When you're on horseback, and then I won't say it too much, but the camera pans out and the title screen pops up. I get chills every time I watch it. An emotional roller coaster of a video game with so much stuff to do. As far as new IPs go, Ghost is amazing.
It's also just stunning to look at. One of those PS5 games that I would just leave on, and you see the leaves and just like all the particles in the back is so gorgeous.
Yeah. And both of our number 3.
Okay. And actually, it's our number 1. It's actually number 1. We didn't rank any of these games
except for this one.
But it's probably the best game of all time,
easily.
Elden Ring.
Yeah, Elden Ring. Yeah.
What I said about Breath of the Wild, about how what I like is mystery and just discovery, this game has that non-stop for almost 120 hours.
Yep.
And on top of that, it is filled with content and challenges. And I love to be challenged in a video game. I've played enough now that like I like some resistance now.
Yeah.
Like I like knowing that like, oh, it's going to be hard for me to get through this. Because I feel like that dopamine kick when I finish it. And I don't get to do that a lot anymore because we live lives at the top here right now where we do in front of crowds and we played so many games.
Elden Ring is just, I remember thinking Limgrave was the size of the world map.
Yes.
And just the overall scale and size of this world, or the first time you go underground, you're like, what is happening right now?
When it happened, I was playing with my friend and we weren't playing together, and I literally called him. I said, hey dude, I think there's a whole other map underground. And he's like, what are you talking about? And then I just hung up.
Right. It's insane. I streamed it nonstop when it came out. Elden Ring is, again, there's an argument to be made that Elden Ring is the greatest game ever made.
I think so too.
You could make that argument.
I could make that argument as well. Yeah.
So good. So that's it.
So people leaned into the 2020s for you. We're going to do one last slide where you see all of our lists. We're going to let you guys decide whom of you... who you get to decide. Was it me or was it Chugs that had the best list overall?
And I know what you're thinking. Unfortunately you can't choose both because I would choose both as well.
I agree. I would actually just smash them all together.
Yeah.
Just know you're not going to hurt our feelings.
Yes.
We're both super invested in all of these video games. We think they're both great.
Yes.
We will finish the show with your result in about 60 seconds.
Every game you listed, I'm a huge fan of.
Same.
The point of this is again, it's unbelievable how many amazing video games there are.
I was going to say, I looked at this list,
Unbelievable.
And this will sound super mean to say, and I was looking at the whole list, I was like, oh yeah, the worst game on this is probably the original Legend of Zelda, which is not a bad game at all. There are no bad games.
No.
We're talking the top of the top at this point. There are no bad games at this point.
Yeah. At this point, these are all games that everyone should play, or I'm sure everyone in chat is like, oh my god, yes, these are classics.
And while we have 40 seconds, let's go and say it right now. You should play Hollow Knight.
Please.
And Braid. If you're not playing independent games, you really should you're doing a disservice to yourself because some of the best games are made by like 4 people.
It's so true.
It is insane. God, I can't wait till ScHlAuChi comes out.
That to me, again, I'm really, really hoping by June.
I want them to straight up shadow drop.
That would be
I don't even look, I've been teased long enough. I just want them to be like, hey, by the way, it's out today, and then I will drop everything I'm doing.
If Team Cherry did that, can you imagine?
I'll call you.
Hey, by the way, okay, ScHlAuChi's out.
The second they announce it, I'll call you to make sure you know.
Oh my god, please. Please. The second we get information.
Get out of the gym, you gotta go.
But there's hopes so bad that it comes out by June.
I think it might.
So I think it might.
I mean, they showed a lot of content last year, so I think they really would. Yeah. And then whatever you're making, Jonathan Blow, who made Braid and The Witness. The Witness is one of my favorite games of all time. I didn't include it, but tell us what you're making. You make great stuff, and I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Amazing stuff.
All right, we're about to find out. You've got about 5 seconds. Who has the best games list? Was it me? Was it Chugs? Nothing's on the line. Don't worry. The championship not on the line for this one.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever played Time Crisis? Played a lot of it in the arcades.
Love Time Crisis.
That's actually one of the arcade cameras I would love to have.
Love it.
With 57% of the votes.
Very close.
Very close. Team Chugs.
All right, Chugs Army. Thank you.
You know what?
Thank you. But great list across the board.
I gladly accept defeat in this one. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That was our favorite games of the last decades. There's so much still coming.
Oh, so much.
We got RE4. The RE4 might take a spot in this list soon.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much for coming this week. Don't forget, we've got Dynamite tonight. You'll be hearing from this man tonight.
Yes, you will.
You'll get to see Stu Grayson against John Moxley. Sting's in action, a 6-man tag. We've got Sky Blue versus Tony Storm. And I'm sure all kinds of crazy other stuff that I am forgetting. But watch that live 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TBS. We're in Kansas City. Any parting words before I say goodbye?
No, just thanks everyone for joining. Excited to be back on again very, very soon, and hope everyone had a good time.
Do love talking video games with you, Chugs.
Too.
Friends, we will see you next week for another All In Arcade. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.